episode 11 of the Comic Source. I'm your host, Jace. In the news, DC has announced a new creative team for Batgirl. Cameron Stewart, Brendan Fletcher, and rising star Babs Tarr are going to take Batgirl in an entirely new, more light-hearted direction. We've seen a few images of the new costume, and it looks pretty cool. Definitely a departure from the so-called house style that DC has had since the New 52 started. Also over at DC, October sees quite a few new books coming out. Arkham Manor, which will show Wayne Manor being turned into the new Arkham Asylum. Apparently Arkham Asylum was destroyed through something that happened in Batman Eternal, so we're seeing some fallout from that with Wayne Manor being turned into a asylum for the criminally insane, so that should be pretty interesting. Also, there's a book called Gotham Academy, which is kind of going in that same vein as Morning Glories or Deadly Class. You know, focuses on younger protagonists, younger characters in a school setting, so we'll see where that goes. Also, DC's third weekly, Earth 2 World's End, starts in October. We see that all three members of the Trinity of Sin are going to be collected together in one book. That's Phantom Stranger, Pandora, and The Question. We see a new Lobo book coming out. It'll be interesting to see how DC incorporates the two different logos that have been introduced so far in the New 52. Clarion the Witch Boy is a reboot or reimagining of an old 70s mystical fantasy comic. In addition to all these new books coming out, there's also going to be, as I mentioned, the new creative team on Batgirl, but also Catwoman and Green Arrow are getting entirely new creative teams. So with all these changes going on at DC, there's been quite a few rumors flying around. Some of them pretty big rumors. What we definitely can say for sure right now is it seems like DC is trying to shift away from the grim and gritty that they've had since the New 52 started and take a little more of a lighthearted approach. So it'll be definitely interesting to see if, with the anniversary of Crisis on Infinite Earths coming up this next April, if we see another reboot, another relaunch, or if DC decides to stick with the New 52 and just gradually shift away from the grim and gritty. Over on the Marvel side of things, the big event about to happen is the death of Wolverine. They've just announced that spinning out of that, they're going to do a 7-issue miniseries called Death of Wolverine: Logan's Legacy. It's going to be a 7-issue miniseries. Issue 1 and Issue 7 are going to be written by Charles Soule. Now, the editor on the book, Mike Martz, recently came over to Marvel from DC, where he was editor on the Batman family of books. What's really interesting is the middle 5 books of the miniseries are each going to be handled by a different creative team. Most of these names you'll probably recognize as creators on DC Batman family books. So issue 2 features X-23 by Tim Seeley and artist Ariella Cristantina. Number 3 is going to focus on Sabretooth by Kyle Higgins and Jonathan Marks. 4's Lady Deathstrike by Marguerite Bennett and Von Doe. Issue 5 is Dakin by Ray Fox and Elia Boniti. And number 6 is Mystique by James Tynion, and the art will be by Andy Clark. So the first book I'm going to talk about in this episode is Red Sonja from Dynamite Comics. It's written by Gail Simone, and the art is by Walter Giovanni. Now before I start talking about the actual story, let me talk a little bit about the covers. Dynamite does a lot of variant covers. Some people like it, some people don't. Personally, it doesn't bother me. I just look at the covers and I get the one that I want. But what's really cool that Dynamite has done is, as far as I can tell, every cover for Red Sonja has been drawn by a woman. Now, there's been a lot of talk in recent years, not enough diversity in comics, not enough diversity in comic creators. Now, one thing we see by the sheer amount of female artists that Dynamite has recruited to do these covers is there's no shortage of amazing female artists out there these days. So let me give a quick rundown of all the amazing female artists that have done covers for Red Sonja so far. There's Jenny Frison, Stephanie Buscema, Amy Reeder, Amanda Connor, Nee Ruffino, Ming Doyle, Becky Cloonan, Allison Sohn, Nicola Scott, Fiona Staples, Colleen Duran, Agnes Grabowska, Pia Huera, Jill Thompson, Stephanie Hans, and I think that's it. If I've missed anybody, I apologize. Like I said, there's definitely no shortage of amazing female artists out there right now, and they really do a great job of making Red Sonja look fierce and realistic, and they're just, as a whole, very, very impressive covers. Now, the book itself is written by Gail Simone, who definitely is one of the best writers when it comes to handling female protagonists. The interior art is done by Walter Giovanni. Also art that I really, really like. Very clean lines, very expressive faces. He does a good job of handling the action. It's very kinetic. Storytelling from panel to panel is fairly good. It's not the best I've seen, but it's certainly not the worst. So art-wise, it's definitely a beautiful book. Now the first 6 issues are an arc called Queen of Plagues. You jump right into action right from the first page. We see that Sonja has been recruited to help somebody from her past who once helped her out. Usually she trusts no man. This is the one man who apparently she has respect for, and she's willing to help him when he makes a request. It's a good story. There's a lot of action going on. Simone manages to keep the action flowing from page to page, but still giving us little flashbacks, background of Red Sonja throughout the first 6 issues. The second arc, again, it's someone recruiting Sonja to do some work for them. He definitely doesn't have Sonja's respect, and I won't spoil it, but he uses a different way to get leverage on Sonja so that she'll do his bidding. I'm not going to get too much into the details here. The book is only up to issue 10 as of right now, so it's real easy to go back and pick up those first issues. You can pick up the first 6 in trade if you want. What I am going to say about this book is it's just really, really fun. That's the best word I can use to describe it. It's adventure. Sonja's fun. She's funny. She's fierce. She's definitely an independent woman. She's a strong woman. She's a little pig-headed. She's not always right. And Gail does a great job of just making her feel like a real person. There's been a lot of complaints in recent years that comics just aren't fun anymore. If you want to read a comic that's just really, really fun, I cannot recommend Red Sonja highly enough. The next book I'm going to talk about is the second of the 3 weekly series that DC is putting out this year. It's entitled The New 52 Futures End. Now that's not a possessive, it's not a futures end, it's what do futures do? Well, futures end. So the basic premise of the story is in the Free Comic Book Day New 52 Futures End issue, we saw that a lot of the heroes had been infected with some kind of techno virus by Brother Eye, and it was pretty much the end of the world. There are very, very few heroes left that haven't been infected. Batman takes it upon himself to try to stop this future apocalypse from happening, and he sends back Batman Beyond in time to try to stop the creation of Brother Eye so that he can head this future off before it even starts. There's some complications right at the end. Everything doesn't go as it's supposed to, and he doesn't quite make it all the way back to present day. He ends up 5 years in the future. So there's a lot of threads. It's a very complicated story. Handling the writing chores are Keith Giffen, Jeff Lemire, Brian Azzarello, and Dan Jurgens. Jurgens also handles the art, and as you can imagine, it takes a lot more than just one artist to draw a weekly book. So the other artists on the book are George Jonte, Patrick Zurcher, Aaron Lopresti, Art Taber, Cam Smith, Mark John Irwin, Scott Eaton, Drew Garassi, Jesus Moreno, and Dan Green. There's a lot of plot threads going on. Like I mentioned, it's very complicated. Besides the main plot of Batman Beyond trying to stop Brother Eye from being created, there's Mr. Terrific plays a pretty prominent role in the book. He doesn't seem to be so much a hero as a celebrity who's kind of just out for himself, so we'll see where that leads. There's a helmeted Superman, so we're not even sure if it's the Superman we know. Perhaps it's the Superman from Earth 2, because 5 years in the future, we see that there was a war between Earth 1 and Earth 2. Apparently Earth 1 was victorious, and there's refugees on Earth 1 from Earth 2. We don't know a whole lot of details of the war. We do know that the Titans are dead. We know that there are Earth 2 superheroes, some of them trying to hide among the population of Earth 1. Some have been captured and are being held at Cadmus, which leads into a whole other storyline with Grifter. He has some new kind of power where he can see aliens. We're not sure yet who these aliens are, but he's been recruited against his will to work for Cadmus. Also working for Cadmus are Deathstroke and another very powerful character named 50 Sue, who we haven't learned a lot about other than she's the sidekick of Deathstroke, and she doesn't seem to care for Grifter too much. Another storyline that's going on is out in deep space. Stormwatch has been attacked. They were pulled out of the bleed by something and nearly all killed to a man. Frankenstein, Agent of Shade, along with Amethyst and Ray Palmer, who's known to most people as the Atom, have been dispatched by Shade to go out there and investigate. Also, Green Arrow has been killed. That was a tragic event in issue 2. Firestorm may have had a chance to save him, but didn't, and that's created a lot of issues for Firestorm, and we see in the latest issue, issue 11, some of the consequences of that. So far, issues 1 through 11 have come out, with issue 12 hitting this Wednesday, the 23rd. This series is supposed to run 48 issues. It'll end the last week of March 2015, just in time for the Crisis on Infinite Earth's 30th anniversary. So could this be the series where something happens that reboots or relaunches the universe? I guess time will tell. But if you're interested in what's going to happen with DC Comics in April 2015, if you want some clues what the future might hold, I definitely would say go out there, pick up the new 52 Future's End. It's certainly a lot of fun so far, and while it hasn't bowled me over yet, I'm definitely interested to see where it goes. But one thing I should also mention is Ryan Sook is doing the covers for these issues, and for me, he's one of the best cover artists in the industry right now. So if you're a DC fan, or if you're just curious what's going on with DC these days, what's going to lead up to the big event in April 2015, this is definitely the book you should be reading. I want to thank everybody for joining me. The next episode will be a special spotlight episode on A Voice in the Dark from Top Cow Comics by Laramie Taylor. I'll see you then.